Welcome to the year 2030 for a World Cup in Ireland. I have travelled forward in time and somehow not aged at all. If anything, I think I look younger. And I'm here to give you updates on a World Cup hosted by Ireland. Of course, none of this is true, it's science fiction. And that's because Cricket Ireland actually asked me to write a piece for their magazine about what cricket might be like in the year 2030. And at first I was like, why would I write that? No, I wasn't. And then I thought, that sounds like a lot of fun.
This is the last knock. My dad told me to say this.
And I thought the most notable thing in the year 2030 that would be different is that we would have many more teams and a lot of teams who probably are playing for the first time or maybe the second or third time at a major tournament. I was thinking Singapore, Nepal, Japan and the USA all would be in the men's tournament one way or another. You could imagine that Japan had built upon their great work with their underage sides and their top order sloggers. The USA would be a mixture of a couple of local players but also a lot of major league players who had then naturalized. Singapore maybe thinner on the local players but a great mix of expats from around the world bringing experience. And of course Nepal, who finally get their act together and have a lovely organic cricket team that starts to really flourish, that is befitting a nation that loves cricket as much as they do. But of course, it's the year 2030. So much more that has changed than just the teams that are available. Like for instance, I think that cricket would have its first female assistant coach of a major men's side. New Zealand would bring in Susie Bates, their former star captain and Olympic basketballer, to be second in charge for the Black Caps. That is after she goes on to be arguably the greatest cricketer from New Zealand never to play a test. She would bring incredible experience and leadership knowledge and support the head coach, Kane Williamson. But it wouldn't even be the only first for women at this World Cup. There would also be the first major ICC men's event with women's umpires and match referees. Of course, all of these moves are massively overdue, probably even now, but I'm guessing that the way cricket goes, 2030 is about as early as we're going to get them. It would also give the ICC a chance for an all-female umpiring panel if they wish. And for a sport and for an organisation like the ICC, who only actually started representing women or even noticing they were alive in the year 2000, this would be quite a statement. However, for 2030, the umpires may not be as in charge as they had been for previous events. The ICC would probably finally decide to follow suit with other major leagues and implement wide calls the same way that no balls are called by a third umpire. And those changes would probably come about after ball tracking would be used to show that umpires make up to 30% of their mistakes on wide calls. Maybe more than that. The ICC will then continue to use on-field real-time technology to call any players for no balls if their arm bends more than 15 degrees during their game. I'm assuming that would only happen after the ICC would have had to change their supplier after some probably false no ball calls were made when they first brought in their system. There would also be plenty of changes at the ground itself, like literally the turf. The biggest problem the ICC had for a long time is over the course of a tournament using the same pitches which help the TV cameras eventually mean that they become lifeless by the end of the tournament. But with T20 leagues around the world going towards a hybrid surface to ensure that each game is played on a similar pitch style, it means that the ICC have decided for the World Cup they will do a similar thing. Of course, this provides outrage amongst many cricket fans because turf has always been a huge part of the game. But the ICC's argument was that it makes for a more even tournament, and also on top of that they can actually control for weather a little bit more than they could have in the past. The hybrid pitches are much better off when the rain comes. There is something wrong in the cricket world, and while it may not be a conspiracy, there does seem to be a movement towards leaving more grass on the wicket, and thusly the global batting average has dropped. If a similar thing has happened to you in your personal life, try Manscaped. Their Lawnmower 4.0 will help you trim any unwanted pubic grass. And once your downstairs track is taken care of, you can also use Manscaped's liquid formulations. So before heading outside, use the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant to stay cool in the heat. And if you've been playing too many games recently and you need some help with your strip, why don't you go and get their Crop Reviver? I think I may possibly have taken all of this analogy too far. But the point is, Manscaped sells items that allow you to shave your pubic itch pitch. Use the code REDINKER, all one word, which is the name of my podcast, and you can get a 20% discount and free worldwide shipping while you curate your special strip like a team of sweaty men hoping it doesn't rain. And the 2030 World Cup will also see something else that we first saw in T20 leagues and then a little bit in the test divisions as well, which is to remove the bails from the game. They were obviously an essential part of cricket for a very long time, but a lot of cricket boards started to suggest that it looked ridiculous that when a ball hits the stumps and the bails don't fall off. While many see it as a tradition, it is something that technology can fix, and so the game is changing again. And there are other things that cricket is changing as well. For the first time ever, an experimental substance will be used to treat the grass for dew. In previous tournaments, this has quite often been a massive issue. This is seen as the first real step towards one of the biggest problems in day-night cricket that we've ever had. That batting first or second is completely changed on whether the dew comes in, on whether the grass is wet. The hope is that finally, after more than a decade of this problem, they'll finally redress some of the problems between batting first and second. There is also a new playing condition in this tournament that has been taken from some of the domestic T20 leagues. The batting and bowling team will have to decide on who's going to bowl the first over and face the first ball beforehand. This is well overdue after many games were actually delayed as the batting and the bowling team kept changing their mind depending on what the matchup was. This tournament will also continue what has been happening in international white ball cricket over the last few years and will allow for substitutions. Teams will be allowed to make up to 3 substitutions from their entire squad of 18 players at any time during the game. Cricket has tried this before under the failed super sub law, but as many franchise leagues have shown, the substitution law actually improves the quality of the cricket. It allows for things like bringing in specialist wicketkeepers, and part-time bowlers are nearly a thing of the past. But perhaps the most important thing is that you always have a game of cricket being played at the top level with 11 fit players playing against another 11 fit players. Although there will be fewer occasions for concussions as the ICC continues to use their no bouncer playing condition. Not all leagues have taken this, and for some bowlers it might be tough to negotiate. If you're used to bowling at the death or the middle overs, bowling short balls is obviously part of your game plan. So there are some players in this tournament who are really struggling. Weirdly, at the same time the ICC have brought in their no bouncers law, helmets have finally been made compulsory at all ICC events. It actually started at the qualifying tournament and the last Women's World Cup. And it's partly to do with insurance, but also the dangers of concussion are much more well known within cricket now, as there's been some recent lawsuits against some of the top boards. In the past, facing spin, helmets weren't seen as necessary, but there have been so many top edges hitting players in the head that the ICC have had to crack down, as some boards already have. There's also new developments on how the World Cup will be followed. Through the official stream, you'll be able to watch the tournament with over 40 languages available, including Nepali, Tok Pisin, which is a PNG Creole, and Xhosa. You'll also be able to follow the game with a VR headset from the Metaverse Stadium, or for an extra fee, be able to share that experience with a former player. And finally, Ireland will be under the microscope. For so long, India, England and Australia hosted as many tournaments as possible. Finally, as the game is starting to grow globally, some of the smaller nations are getting their tournaments. Of course, the USA had one a few years back, but Ireland hosting the World Cup, everything they do will be under a complete spotlight. Also, because it's the year 2030, the spotlights are better.